Hello, and welcome to 100 Facts to Fall Asleep To. My name is Calliope. Today we are covering the Maya civilization. So our facts are broken up into these little informal sections, which you can find in the timestamps if there's a particular subject that interests you. And the sources for my research and pictures will all be at the end of the video. Number 1. The Maya people did not disappear after the ancient civilization fell. They moved, they were colonized and had to assimilate, or they lived in remote areas that were not as affected by European contact, and continue to endure into the modern day with populations in the millions. Number 2. What we call the Maya are multiple groups of people, not one homogeneous community. Different lines include the Quiche Maya, Yucatec, Kekchi, Mopan, Chantal, Itza, and the Zeltal Maya. 3. The people did not call themselves Maya, but instead the term Maya, or Maya with two A's, used to describe them comes from the Yucatan city of Mayapan, the last post-classic capital of a city-state. 4. The Maya were never under one kingdom or government, but divided into city-states that were each ruled by a king, also the head of the religious state, called Kuhul Aya, or Holy Lords. 5. The term Maya refers to the people and culture, while Mayan refers to the language. 6. Originally, before the pre-classic period, the Maya people all spoke one language, Proto-Mayan. In the modern day, there are around 20 to 30 plus Maya languages between millions of people, and many are not mutually intelligible. Most also speak Spanish as well. 7. The ancient Maya civilization stretched from Mexico to Central America in the modern-day countries of Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. 8. The Maya territories were separated into 3 areas: the northern Maya lowlands on the Yucatan Peninsula, the southern lowlands in northern Guatemala and Mexico, Belize, and western Honduras, and the southern highlands in the southern Guatemala mountains. 9. The greater timeline of Mesoamerica starts with the Archaic period from 8,000 to 7,000 BCE to 2,000 BCE. Dates are not hard and fast and vary between sources. The Olmec period, also known as the pre-classic or formative period, ran from 1500 BCE to 200 BCE. The Zapotec period ran from 600 BCE to 800 CE. The Teotihuacan period was 200 CE to 900 CE. The El Tajín period is also known as the classic period for both the Maya and Mesoamerica, from 250 CE to 900 CE. From 950 CE to 1524 CE was the post-classic period, ending when the Quiche Maya were defeated by the Spanish at, I'm not going to try to pronounce this one, this was the only one I couldn't figure out, and representing the end of the ancient Maya civilization. 10. The Maya timeline consists of the Archaic from 8000 BCE to 2000 BCE, pre-classic period starting from 2000 BCE to 250 CE, the classic period from 250 CE to 950 CE, and the post-classic as listed before. 11. The earliest settlement has a possible radiocarbon date of 2600 BCE at Cuello in Belize, but this is not confirmed, so the earliest date is usually accepted between 2000 to 1800 BCE. The Golden Age of the Maya is considered to be the Classic period, with the height being the Late Classic period running from 600 CE to 900 CE. 13. A 2018 study using LIDAR, light detection and ranging, estimated the peak of Maya population was around 11 million, but new research published in the Journal of Archaeological Science Reports estimates the peak population more like 16 million, twice the population of New York City. 14. Many cities had been essentially lost to the world, save for the local people who knew about them, until the 19th century. Pyramids and city structures were all but buried underneath foliage, and have been slowly cleared away and restored over the decades since, like the temple of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza. 15. Important cities of the Maya Empire included Tikal, Copan, Uxmal, Calakmul, Chichen Itza, and Palenque. 16. Many cities were incredibly large, with tens of thousands of people to perhaps even 100,000 people. 17. El Mirador in the rainforests of Guatemala was the largest city in the Americas in its heyday, and is the largest known site. It may have had a population as high as 100,000. 18. Palenque was originally named Lacamha, meaning place of many waters, for the rivers, streams, and waterfalls running through the area. 19. The ruins of Palenque contain more than 200 structures left on an area of over 1 square mile or 2.5 square kilometers. 20. Chichen Itza means mouth of the well of the Itza. It was the most important site in the late Classic period. 21. Uxmal and Tulum in Mexico were some of the few still inhabited ruin sites when the Spanish arrived, according to Spanish colonial documents. 22. Cities included palaces, temples, ball courts, open courts/plazas, and astronomical observatories. The ceremonial centers with these structures show urban planning, but the rest of the cities weren't generally formally planned out, so they expanded kind of chaotically, growing out from the center of the city. 23. Raised white stone roads called sacbeab, singular sacbe, which is a Yucatec Maya word, meaning white way or white road, ran through the towns and connected different cities. 24. The Great Stone Cities were abandoned by around 900 CE due to multiple circumstances, like droughts, overpopulation, and warfare, and the people generally moved to smaller agricultural villages. 25. Pyramids were built as stepped structures, with carvings and stucco work on their facades. 26. Architecture in the Maya world is that much more spectacular, considering that the people had Stone Age technology. No metal tools, pulleys, and no wheel. Limestone was one of the main materials used, though volcanic tuff or sandstone was used in cities where that was more prevalent, but in places where there wasn't a lot of usable stone, bricks were used. They also used the corbel arch technique. 27. One particular structure was the Triadic Pyramid, a main temple with 2 secondary structures, all on a platform. 28. Their pyramids often consist of multiple older pyramid structures, one built after another. El Castillo in Chichen Itza, for example, is built on top of 2 other pyramids. 29. Many cities contain not 1 or 2 pyramids, but several. For example, Tikal has the Temple of the Great Jaguar, the Temple of the Mask, the Temple of the Jaguar Priest, Temple of the Two-Headed Serpent, Temple 5, Temple of the Inscriptions, the Pyramid of the Lost World, and the Citadel, to name some of them. 30. Maya pyramids were not used only for burials, like how the ancient Egyptians or Nubians used them, but primarily served as a platform for temples and used for religious ceremonies. 31. The pyramids were constructed with astronomy in mind. They often aligned with equinoxes and solstices, such as the Pyramid of Kukulkan, aka El Castillo, at Chichen Itza, dedicated to the feathered serpent deity of the same name, where the spring and fall equinoxes showed a serpentine shadow effect cast upon the steps. 32. The La Danta Pyramid Complex at El Mirador is one of the largest, if not the largest, structure of the ancient world by volume. Its height is 232 feet, or 73 meters, and contains 2.8 million cubic meters of fill. This is 200,000 cubic meters more fill than the Great Pyramid of Giza. 33. Temple 1 at Tikal, or the Temple of the Great Jaguar, is a pyramid 154 feet or 47 meters tall and contained both a burial and a 3-chambered temple at the top. Interred inside was the king Yasa Chan Kawil I, or A Cacao, the Lord Chocolate. 34. The Pyramid of the Magician in Uxmal is a strange structure. It has an oval shape and was built on top of itself 5 times, culminating to a height of 93 feet or 28 meters. 35. Some of the most brilliant examples of Maya art include stelae, which the Maya called tetun, bas-relief carvings depicting things like history and accomplishments. 36. LiDAR has been used to find structures in the jungle previously hidden from view, like the city of Valeriana in Mexico, described in a 2024 article titled "Lasers Reveal Maya City, Including Thousands of Structures Hidden in Mexico." 37. Multiple architectural styles arose, depending on the region. For example, there was the Peten style, like in the Temple of the Great Jaguar, Puch style with mosaics on the upper facades and left plain on the lower facades, Chene style with the mosaics on both the upper and lower facades, and Riobec style that used purely decorative towers. 38. Despite archaeologists' best efforts and all of the glyphs that have been translated, we don't know a whole lot about the common Maya as people themselves. We know what they ate, how they worked, how they kept the city afloat. We uncovered evidence of their burial practices and sometimes the goods they left behind. But their houses were made of biodegradable materials, and they couldn't read or write, so we don't have their stories or testimony. In terms of what they were like as individuals, we have very little. This is in contrast to the ancient Egyptians, where we have little shards of pottery that have prayers on them or tell us about legal disputes or just little bits about individual people. 39. The kinds of people that made up a typical city included the leader, which could be a high king, Kuhul Aya, or one or more lords, Aya, priests, scribes, military members, artisans, merchants, farmers, officials, manual workers, and slaves. 40. Homes were generally inherited, and families buried deceased members underneath the floor of their house. 41. Marriage seems to have generally been arranged between two people of the same social class, and if either spouse was unhappy with the marriage, they could divorce without issue. 42. The Maya were adept at astronomy, charting the sun and the moon so closely they were almost dead accurate in the length of the solar year. They found it to be 365.242 days, being off by only 0.000198, while the lunar month was calculated to be 29.5308 days, while the modern measure is 29.53059. 43. They also excelled in mathematics, including using the concept of zero long before Europe knew of it. 44. The Maya used multiple calendars. Their two main calendars were the Hab, with 365 days divvied into 18 months of 20 days each, and the Zolkin of 260 days, with 3 groups of 20-day months. The Hab was the civil calendar, while the Zolkin was the sacred calendar, and they worked together to form what's called the calendar round. And I hope to God I pronounced those correctly, or I was very English about it. 45. They also used a long count calendar, whose cycle started on August 11th, 3114 BCE, and ran to December 21st, 2012. This did not mean the Maya predicted the world would end in 2012, but instead ended that particular cycle, made of 13 parts called baktuns that lasted almost 400 years each, and would move on to the next cycle after that. 46. Each month in the Maya calendar was governed by a specific god. 47. The Olmec was the first major Mesoamerican civilization, and the Maya inherited multiple aspects from this culture, like their number system, their calendar, and parts of their religion and culture. 48. The Teotihuacan also influenced the Maya, as evidenced in inscriptions at Tikal, including some that say the king of the Teotihuacan city replaced the leader of Tikal with one of his own people at one point. 49. One of the most famous Maya kings was Pakal of Palenque. He was buried in a pyramid with a jade mask in a jade-filled tomb with multiple human sacrifices. 50. It's well known that the Maya practiced human sacrifice. There were 3 main methods, though they did use others as well, which they used generally on high-status prisoners of war: decapitation, then heart extraction, and throwing a person in a cenote, a natural well. 51. Certain kinds of deaths, including sacrifice, meant a one-way ticket to paradise, instead of the soul taking a long and perhaps perilous journey through the 9 levels of the underworld and the 13 levels of the upper world. Sacrifice wasn't seen as wrong because the person wouldn't exactly die, but instead move on instantly to eternal happiness. 52. The famous ball court game was sometimes called Pakatok and involved 7 people to a team that tried to bounce a rubber ball into a hoop on a wall using only their hips, shoulders, head, and knees. 53. One team, or captain, might be sacrificed at the end of a ball court game, but it's not clear if it was the winner or loser. At some sites, the writing suggests the winning team may be sacrificed, but the pervading hypothesis was that the losing team was sacrificed, and sometimes they weren't at all. 54. The generally accepted, at least currently, model of Maya class had the ruling class at the top in the palace, the elite who lived in stone houses near the temples. The middle class was a little farther from the city center, and the lower class was even further than that. But both the middle and lower class lived in wattle and daub houses, or essentially these woven wood houses covered with clay or mud, though evidence suggests it's a little muddier than that, and not as clean-cut, with more diversity between the classes. Not every city had an elite either. Some villages were taken care of communally. 55. If you've ever played or seen a playthrough of the PC game Nancy Drew and the Secret of the Scarlet Hand, you might know that the Maya used Cinnabar, a bright red mineral containing mercury. They scattered the red pigment over burials, which could also be hematite or a mix of both minerals, like on the skeleton of the Red Queen buried at Palenque. 56. While the king line was generally patrilineal, it was not strictly. For example, Lady Sakuk, mother of the future King Pakal of Palenque, ruled for 3 years, starting on October 19th, 612 CE, until July 26, 615. King Pakal, full name Kinich Yanab Pakal, and also known as Pakal the Great, ruled for 68 years, and under his rule, many of the structures of Palenque were built and can still be seen today. 58. The Maya city-states often had relationships with other cultures, like Tikal with Teotihuacan, Mayapan had Aztec influence, and Chichen Itza had close ties with the Toltec city, Tolan. 59. City-states were also often rivals with other cities. Tikal and Calakmul were infamous rivals, and Tikal attacked their once ally Caracol in 556 CE. Caracol, in turn, joined forces with Calakmul and defeated Tikal in 562 CE. 60. Starting in the pre-classic period, the Maya grew maize in addition to their already established crops of squash, beans, chili peppers, and cassava. 61. The Maya also cultivated cacao, vanilla, tomatoes, avocados, and cotton. 62. The Maya didn't have beer, but drank an alcoholic beverage called pulque, or chi, made from the fermented sap of an agave americana plant called maguey. 63. The Maya used slash and burn agriculture techniques, where they cut down the forests and jungle and burnt the land to make it suitable for farming, while terracing the mountainsides to be able to grow on the highlands. After 2 years of growing, the fields were moved so that the land could recover for 10 years. 64. The Maya did have domesticated dogs and possibly ducks. They captured turkeys to be eaten, as well as possibly deer, and used deer skin for leather. They also used the skin of jaguars. 65. Trade in the Maya world stretched across Mesoamerica and included items like cacao beans, obsidian, jade, textiles, pottery, and salt. 66. The Maya did not have or use pack animals or the wheel, So to trade, they carried goods by hand or in canoes if a river route was available. 67. Jade was incredibly precious. The Maya loved green and blue-green colors, and their language did not distinguish between the colors blue and green, but valued green jade in particular very highly. 68. Maya pottery was not glazed, but they still had a polished finish. Instead, they used burnishing techniques and painted the surface with clay mixed with minerals. Their firing techniques are still not known. 69. In addition to jade, Maya artisans worked with materials like obsidian, wood, ceramics, and stucco, and also painted murals. 70. Maya jewelry included necklaces, bracelets, and earrings generally made of jade, gold, silver, copper, or shells. 71. Piercings and tattoos were common practice to the Maya, using stone chert for puncture tattooing detailed designs. 72. Dental modifications, like inlays with jade or obsidian, fillings, and engravings were sometimes practiced by the Maya elite. Primarily it was seen with adults, but some examples were found of teenagers and even children having inlay modifications. 73. We see a similar manner of dress in modern Maya women with ancient Maya, with embroidered woven cotton blouses called huipils. In modern day, they wear skirts called cortes, but for the ancient Maya, their skirts were called enaguas. Ancient Maya men typically wore loincloths and woven tunics. 74. Weaving clothing was typically done on a backstrap loom, and the colors and patterns of the fabric showed social status, region, and cultural ties. 75. The Maya elite wore cotton clothing like the rest of the people, but also wore jaguar skins and leather made from deerskin. 76. There were 5 directions to the Maya: the traditional cardinal directions and the center. Each direction was represented by a color: white for north, yellow for south, red for east, black for west, and green for the center. 77. Festivals marked religious dates, changing seasons, and events like births or deaths. The people would feast, dance, play music, and engage in rituals and storytelling. 78. Military weapons included blowguns, darts, javelins, bow and arrows, and spears. By the time the Europeans rolled around, they also had wood swords with obsidian blades. 79. The Maya worshipped many gods, the most important being Itzamna, the creator god. Others included the sun god Kinich Aya, the rain and storm god Chak, and the lightning god Kawil, the serpent god Kukulkan. 80. Cenotes were special to the Maya. They were thought to be portals to the underworld, and they would sometimes lower children into the cenotes to speak with the gods, bring them back out, and have them recall what they had heard. 81. One of the most important practices for the Maya was the concept of bloodletting, performed by the royal family as a sacrifice for the gods. It could be used for communing with the gods, or to mark important events like throne ascensions and births. 82. Caves were also associated with the underworld and a place to commune with the gods. The king might go into a cave to practice bloodletting and give offerings. Sometimes ceramic vessels would be smashed inside the caves, and sometimes people were buried inside them. 83. One of the goddesses, Ixchel, was the deity of rainbows, but in Maya mythology, rainbows brought bad luck and disease. She is represented by a monstrous-looking crone typically, but she also has a benevolent aspect that was greatly worshipped by women, where she represents fertility and childbirth and looks young and beautiful. 84. Different groups of Maya had different names for gods or concepts, though they represented the same idea. The underworld was called Xibalba by the Quiche Maya, while the Yucatec Maya called it Metnal. 85. Sometimes multiple Mesoamerican cultures shared the same general concepts with different names. The plumed serpent god Kukulkan to the Yucatec Maya was also known as Gucamats in Quiche, a Hecatl of possibly Huastec origin, later adopted by the Aztecs, but better known as the Aztec and Toltec god Quetzalcoatl in the Nahuatl language. Carvings of the god were also made by the Olmecs. 86. In Maya mythology, there were 9 levels of the underworld, 1 middle level, Earth, and 13 levels of an upper world. The world tree, called the Seba tree of life, has its roots in the lowest levels of the underworld and grows through the earth and all the way to the highest levels of heaven. 87. Maya writing used glyphs, or pictures that represented words or sounds. In total, there were about 1,000 glyphs, but scribes used up to 500 at a time. There were 5 vowels and 19 consonants. 88. It is likely that only the elite, like nobles and priests, could read, and elite women were also allowed to learn to read. 89. The first recognizably Maya writing dates to the 1st century BCE, and it's thought that it developed from the earlier Olmec writing system. 90. At Copan, the Maya built the Temple of the Hieroglyphic Stairway, which has the longest inscription in existence at 2,000 glyphs over 63 steps. The glyphs are thought to recite the history of the city's rulers. 91. Another text that survived came from the Quiche people around modern-day Guatemala, called the Popol Vuh, written between 1554 and 1558, describing the history and mythology of the Quiche, including their creation myth. 92. Inscriptions at Palenque describe the earliest recorded king ascending on March 10th, 431 CE, and runs until the end of the 8th century CE. 93. The Aztecs called the Maya territory the land of the red and black, for their writing in codices that was primarily black with red highlights. 94. Illiterate people sometimes attempted to copy the writing system with graffiti, creating gibberish. Graffiti has been found at over 50 Maya sites and also shows representations of temples, animals, people, and gods. 95. Glyphs were arranged generally in double columns and read in a zigzag pattern, starting at the top left. 96. One man in particular was responsible for so much knowledge and culture lost. Spanish Bishop Diego de Landa. He burned 40 Maya books called codices and over 20,000 images and steles to force the Maya to Christianity, and destroyed what he called superstition and the devil's trickery. 97. While De Landa destroyed almost every piece of Maya literature, his actions were condemned and he had to defend himself in Spain, creating the 1566 document Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán, which aided in later translating the language and saving details about the culture and religion. 98. 3 codices survived de Landa's destruction: the Madrid Codex, the Dresden Codex, and the Paris Codex, each one named after the city they were found in after they were taken from the Yucatan. 99. The Spanish brought diseases like smallpox and typhoid with them, killing as much as 90% of the Maya between 1500 CE and 1600 CE. 100. While the dominant religion is Christianity because of forced conversion by the Spanish, the Maya often observe a hybrid religion, intertwining their faith with the ancient Maya traditions and rituals, so that the old ways still live on in some fashion. I'd like to thank you so much for joining me for these 100 facts about the Maya. I hope you have a whale of a day and a good rest of your night.